All right, good afternoon, friends. My name is David Zobel, and I'm the Director of Education here at Signature Theater. Thank you all so much for coming to this month's Inside Signature. In a moment, I'll introduce our guests, but first, a couple of announcements and house rules for this afternoon. First off, if you have not seen In the Heights yet, you have plenty of time, but the seats are going quickly. You have through May 4th. Out of curiosity, who here in person has seen the show so far? Most.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. That's great. It's fantastic. Other things going on. This upcoming Monday night at 7:30 p.m., we have the closing night performance of the annual Signature in the Schools production. This is an original piece by local actor and playwright Danny Stoller called Failureland. Features a cast and crew of local public school students and Crystal Mosser, who's been in many shows here, is in the cast as well, designed by area professionals. It's technically sold out, but check at the box office. Some seats might get turned in. Oh, I directed that thing. Whatever. Okay. Whatever. I wasn't going to bring that up. Okay.
Nice.
Some schmuck. And also sold out March 7th, playing through March 17th is Job. If you can snag a ticket, it's really a great piece of theater. The last thing that I'm going to tell you about that is also sold out, but we're probably going to add some tickets soon. On select Saturdays for In the Heights, there will after the matinees there will be backstage tours led by members of the company. The tickets are $12. Technically, currently sold out, but we're looking at adding seats to that spots to those tours. So keep an eye on the website if that's something that you're interested in. So if you haven't been to one of these events before, the format's pretty simple. After I introduce our guests, I'll ask some questions. If at any point you have a question, for those of you in person, just raise your hand good and high, and I'll call on you at an appropriate moment. For our friends at home, if you have a question, just pop it into the chat, and a staff member will pass that question on to us at an appropriate moment. So we have with us today, Ángel Lozada. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, yeah.
Good.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, so glad to have you joining us today. And how's In the Heights going so far?
Oh, it's so fun. It's a party every night.
Yeah,
the
feels
energy
like it.
is so high. We're doing good. It's a fun time. Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good. It's a show about a lot of things, but it's a show about home in the
Yes.
end. Where was home for you growing up?
So my parents like to say that I definitely was born in Orlando, Florida, by way of Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Yes. They definitely we came over here, and yeah, Orlando, Florida has been home.
Nice.
Yeah.
And tell me about family. There are artists in the family, or are you the lone wolf in this regard?
For musical theater, lone wolf.
Okay.
Now, they're younger cousins now that
Okay.
are doing it. But
Love it.
my dad's side of the family, specifically in Puerto Rico, are very musical. Very,
Awesome.
very, very musical. Musicians, singers, dancers. I don't know if some of y'all know the song Despacito by Luis Fonsi. It's a very famous song. But basically there's like an opening lick of
Yeah.
like a Puerto Rican guitar called the cuatro. That's my cousin
No
playing on
kidding.
it. Yeah. They very often sing backup for like Ricky Martin and
my
stuff like that.
gosh.
So yeah, very musical family on my dad's side.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how did you fall into all of this?
Oh, so I feel like theater kind of found me.
Okay.
I grew up playing baseball. It was baseball. That was going to be my life. And then kind of in high school, when it got serious, I realized, oh, I don't actually like this that much. I think my parents liked it more than I did.
Yeah.
And I had to take an art elective, which happened to be choir. So I started singing in the choir. Honestly, kind of embarrassed to be in choir because I came from sports background, and then I had to be in choir. And I remember it was like midway through my freshman year of high school, and my chorus teacher was like, you have to actually sing in choir. You can't just like move your mouth. Like, you have to actually sing. And I was like, yeah. I was just so embarrassed. And then I started to sing, and she was like, oh, you have a little bit of a voice, don't you? And then she like gave me a solo in a show. I sang, it was like a variety show, but I ended up singing Sherry from Jersey Boys. And that's when it kind of just hit me. Like, I was like, oh, I kind of love this. This is really cool. But I was still struggling with my embarrassment of it. So it took me a while to find theater. So I was like the kid that could sing but didn't do theater. And then the theater department was like, come over here. And so my junior year of high school, I auditioned for Willy Wonka, the
Okay,
musical.
yeah.
And I ended up getting cast as the Candy Man.
Okay.
But they had me sing all of Willy Wonka's songs.
Did
I
he,
don't know,
like,
it's
lip
high
sync
school.
to you?
No. I don't know. I forget how they justified it, but I definitely was like in the corner singing the songs.
Weird.
Yeah. High school, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I knew that I loved it, but I didn't realize that I was like gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in my senior year of high school, and it was like, what are you gonna do with your life? It was always baseball. Now you're doing this interesting combination of choir and theater, but also very new to it. And I decided to just go for it. I was like, I guess I'm gonna audition for musical theater. But I was so green. I didn't know what I was doing at all. Like there was no part of me that knew what I was doing except that I had a voice. I knew that I could sing, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know dance in the way that musical theater danced. I grew up dancing, obviously, like salsa, merengue, bachata, all Latin style dances. But when it came to ballet and jazz, I was like, I don't know left from right here. So I auditioned for schools. I didn't get into so many schools. I got waitlisted at one school, and then I got into Florida State University for vocal performance, not musical theater. And I've always kind of been the kid that was like, when people say no, I'm gonna figure out how to like when I get rejected, it almost gives me like more fire to like work harder. And so I came into college. I went to Florida State University, and I came into college. Hey, fellow Noel. I came into college with this plan of I knew I didn't want to do opera. I loved singing, but I wanted to express more through my body and just like in a different way. And so I went to FSU, started my freshman year as a vocal performance major, but had this plan of auditioning for the musicals while I was there. And my freshman year, I got into Spring Awakening.
Okay.
And I was understudy for one of the roles for Moritz. And I remember working so hard. I was absorbing everything I was watching. And then the moment came where I think he hurt his ankle. I think it was like a student performance.
Okay.
And I went on. And I knew everything. I wouldn't say that I was great, but I knew everything. I was prepared. I just like met the moment. And then I got asked to audition for the program again. And then I got in. And then my journey started.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. And family supportive?
Yes. Ultimately, yes. At first, what is this?
Right.
What are you doing? Like, they knew singing, they knew dancing, but the world of musical theater was very they didn't know anything about it, really. And I think, weirdly enough, I think both of them were tough on me, but my dad was more specifically tough about me switching from baseball to music, which is ironic because his family is so musical.
Yeah.
But I think he just had this idea that I was going to be a baseball player, as you know, as parents do. And he was the one that was the hardest to like come around. And now he's totally come around, but he still prefers, like if I'm in a musical that's sung through, like an Andrew Lloyd Webber, he'll love that.
Okay.
He loves like music so much. Once it gets to dialogue and scenes, he's like, can we sing again? You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of where my dad lives. But they are super supportive now, and I feel like they're very proud of me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are they coming to see the show?
Yes, my mom is coming March 21st, I believe, around there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it.
My dad's going to try to come later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go to school for musical theater, and then what? Did you go straight to New York, or what happened post-college?
Yeah, I kind of was on a roll my senior year in college. You know, you study so much. I was always a hard worker. I never was someone that was just good at something. I always had to work at it. And so I just worked really hard to learn the dance, the acting, the technique of acting, what that even was. I didn't even know anything when I got there. But I worked so hard, and then by my senior year, Hamilton was starting to do lots of tours. There was like tours going out.
Yeah.
It was like around that time. And so I'm graduating, also preparing for my senior showcase. We did a senior showcase in New York City. And I'm in final callbacks for I think it was the Philip tour of Hamilton. And it was for the role of Philip, John Lawrence. And I remember making it to finals. I was graduating college. You're a senior in college, you're like the big fish, and now I'm in finals for Hamilton. And I think I had about 10 callbacks. It was so many. I thought I was gonna get it. I was like, my life is gonna change. And I got to New York. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where it was between me and another guy. And I remember the other guy coming up to me and he was like, "How long have you had the material?" And I was like, "Man, this is like my 12th time. I'm ready. Like, I'm so in it." He was like, "Yeah, I'm staring at my paper." And he got it. And I remember thinking, I got this. And when he got it, it kind of crushed the whole like illusion or delusion that I was living in. But it was a really cool start to New York because it was like, welcome to New York. It's going to be a lot of this. And so that's kind of how it started. But I was blessed enough to get an agent through that showcase. And then I just started auditioning, and about like maybe 6 months into New York, I got my first big job, which was Jesus Christ Superstar Live on NBC.
Yeah, amazing. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, that was insane. That was bigger than like I had ever see. I like had the rejection of Hamilton, but I didn't know that this was gonna come. And this was really cool because it was like so many Broadway veterans were in that ensemble just because of the nature of what it was. And here I was just graduating college, and a lot of them were like, "Do you realize where you are in this moment?" And I was like, I don't think I have the context to completely understand.
Yeah.
But I remember there were multiple days that I would just cry out of gratitude because I was so happy to be there. And it was it was bigger than I ever imagined because also my parents got to see me.
Yeah.
And still at that point, they were learning what this was, and they had a whole viewing party at the house.
love
and
that.
My college had a viewing party. It was really emotional and honestly one of the best experiences of my life.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Questions from our audience so far? Still building up. Okay. Let's talk In the Heights.
Yeah.
So for the uninitiated, for the few people who haven't seen it, what is this show about?
I feel like if I could sum it up in one word, it's community. Like, this show is about a community of people. This show is about gentrification and fighting gentrification and wanting to maintain community, but fighting almost like this villain that isn't like personified in the show, but it's like ever present almost every scene where like things are starting to change within the neighborhood that they live in. Things are becoming more expensive, and in reality they can't afford to live there anymore. So I think that, community, staying strong in community, but also fighting gentrification.
Wow, amazing. And you play Usnavi.
Yes.
Tell us about this guy. Who is he? What makes him tick?
Oh, Usnavi. Wow, Usnavi's really fun. He's a fun guy. I feel like Usnavi is the heartbeat of the neighborhood in a way that he knows everyone. He knows like everyone very personally because he's the bodega owner. Everyone comes in, everyone talks to him, but at the same time, he's someone that had to grow up quicker than most people, and he's almost taking on this caretaker role to Sunny because he wants Sunny to have a better future, but Usnavi's still like in his mid-20s, early 20s, and so he's someone that had to grow up quick, someone that loves profoundly and like a lot of people, but at the same time has dreams and aspirations of his own to like get out of this place where at one point he feels like he's stuck in, as he sees everyone, Nina goes to college, people have different things that they get to do, and he's here. And then he has a beautiful realization later that this is home, and he becomes the centerpiece once, Abuela passes. Yeah.
What of yourself do you see in Usnavi?
Oh, man. I think, first of all, this role has come a couple times, and I've not gotten it. And then I just was the standby at the Muni this summer.
Okay.
So I didn't get to play him, but I got to learn the role and, be ready for this moment.
Yeah.
I feel like in this moment, I lost my grandmother in January. So it's almost like universally, I feel like I was supposed to be here. So in that way, I share that with Usnavi. I also had a grandmother that wasn't my blood grandmother. She raised me, she helped raise me, and having that experience with an abuela that's not really your abuela is so common in our community. And that parallel with my life is something that's also very similar. Also think Usnavi's really cool because he has like he's from New York. Parents are from the Dominican Republic, so he naturally has like this New York isms about him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when Vanessa comes in the room, all of that goes away. Like he doesn't even know how to like speak to her, and I
Yeah.
feel like I'm definitely that. Like I definitely have like awkwardness and like in specific situations. So there's lots of parallels, and in this moment in my life, I feel like I was supposed to do it right now. Like I
love
wasn't
that.
supposed to do it before. I was supposed to do it right now because I have a deeper understanding of some of the things that, not that I would have had to fake because as an actor you figure it out, but to have some of the things happen in my life that happened so recently, and then honestly be able to heal through this show,
Totally.
I feel like helps just be more honest. Yeah.
I love that. And that healing, I mean, like I said, I saw the show on Tuesday, and there's just so much joy in that room.
Yeah.
Like, it is palpable. What in this show is giving you joy? What describe the joy of In the Heights?
Yeah. Well, I would say like there is something very special about doing a show about a community, specifically when it's your community and you get to do it together, because there's this inherent language, whether it be Spanish or just cultural, that we understand, the way we greet each other, the way we hug, the way we kiss each other on the cheek to say hello. It's like not only on stage, it's off stage, and we're like a family. So what brings me joy is the community, the cast, because what you see on stage is also like behind the scenes.
Awesome.
Like how we are on stage is how we are off stage. And I think the director did a really good job of being like, how do you interact with your people? And us bringing that on stage, it's the same backstage. It's really cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. There's a handful of people in the cast who've done this show many times.
Yeah.
Looking through bios, I was like, oh, one of them is, I think this is like production number 6.
Yes. Is that Rudy? Maybe Rudy?
Plays Sonny.
Oh.
Yes.
Nick.
Yeah,
Nick.
Who's done like 6 productions now, I think.
Yes.
Was there like any sense in the room from those folks of like mentorship, or like we know this territory, or was it we're all here to start this from the ground up?
Yeah, I think it was starting from the ground up.
Awesome.
James did a wonderful job, because James has also, our director, has also done the show probably upwards of 6 times. And he mentioned at the beginning that every community is different. So we did build it from the ground, because also I've never actually done it,
Yeah.
And so never felt anybody be like, hey, we've done it this way, so maybe try it this way. It was always like, hey, what are you doing with your Usnavi? And then we'll respond with what I'm doing with my Sunny or my Abuela.
Cool.
So it really was a building of our own community. That's kind of what it was.
That's great. I guess you've kind of tapped into this already, but maybe go a little deeper. What does In the Heights mean to you personally? What does this show mean to you?
I think In the Heights is like an example of resilience in the face of like obstacles, challenges. It's kind of reflective of the world we're living in today, as art is. Art is like reflective of real life. And what I love so much about this show is how it's like a celebratory act of resistance against the gentrification that's happening. And I think doing In the Heights in this moment, in this time, at this location, feels very powerful. And it feels like ultimately what we want is for people to see our community as same, because we have a lot more in common than we do different.
Yeah.
And I think that is like the thing that is the deepest, is doing it right now in this moment with the world that we're living in, and being able to celebrate us through all the noise that's happening.
Yeah.
Because you read the headlines and then you come in here and we're holding our flags up proudly, and it's a really cool like form of resistance, and there's a lot of power in celebration, and I love that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Any questions? Oh, we've got one online, please.
So this question is, how would you compare the experience of performing in such a unique stage compared to a traditional stage?
Yeah, so
Have you ever performed in the round?
talk about performing in the Max and in this configuration.
Yeah, okay. So I have performed in the round before, but this is not
not-
really the
no,
round.
I don't know
This
what this
I don't
is.
know what you would call this. It's like almost the round,
Yeah,
but not fully.
but kind of thrust and
I would say performing here is super intimate. As Usnavi, you have such a wonderful opportunity to connect with people literally sitting this close to you. Also intimidating, can be intimidating. You know, the first couple shows, you know, we're doing it in a room, we're rehearsing in a room with no audience for so long, and then we get into the space and you're right here and I'm telling you the story, and it took an adjustment, but I think it has helped me be able to stand just fully on my own 2 feet and be able to express and tell the story with more confidence and bring the audience into the community. And I think that is exactly the point of what we're trying to do anyways, by like what I'm saying about we're more similar than we're different. It's cool to have the audience kind of immersed in the theater because you feel like you're a part of the neighborhood as well, and you are. So I think that is like the unique thing that I really love about it.
I do too. David, you had a question?
Yes, I've got a million questions.
Let's go.
And just, I'm going to repeat the questions once you're done so our folks at home hear what you're saying.
I'm going to give my big outdoor voice as well. So
Okay.
Let's go.
you may pick up. One of the things that's so interesting about your role, the role of Usnavi, he is the connector in the community, but it isn't a typical community. Usually with an immigrant community, they're all from the same country, whatever the country is.
Yeah.
And often it's even more tightly knit than that. But here, and it shows up so beautifully in the carnival scene,
Yes.
where everybody has a different flag, it is a kind of a construction of a United Nations of Latine
Yes.
communities. And so this is something I responded to very strongly when I saw the performance, and I'm hoping to see it again, is that you are the connector among many different constituencies. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you navigate. It's not simply Dominican, it's not simply Puerto Rican, it's everybody.
Yeah.
How do I recap that? Usnavi, as uniter of all these people from different countries, talk to us about the carnival moment. Maybe we can start there.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that it is not just one, immigrant community. It's so many communities, which is the lovely part about New York, is that we all come together. And just like the neighborhood in New York, our neighborhood here, yeah, it's filled with so many different, Latin representation. But the thing that like, or how shall I say, the thing that like brings us together is that growing up, at least for me, I grew up with my mom being raised in the Bronx. And so when I was born and once I started going back to visit my grandmother, I realized that it wasn't only Puerto Rican, it was Dominican, it was Cuban, it was Ecuadorian. And so you learn, oh, okay, there's different cultures. How do we connect? How are we different? But what connects us is that we're all Latine, as you say. And I don't know, there's this beautiful, yes, we're different, but it's almost like when people say they're proud to be American looks so many different
Yes.
ways. It's the same thing, Latine, and we're all proud to be that, and this is how we're specific and are different in our dishes, in our cultures, and we learn from each other. We learn more and more. So I think that it is very unique in terms of musical theater, but in terms of life and how we live and how we're raised and how we grow up, I think it's more common that way. If that makes sense.
That's great. Please. Yes.
I think we need to say out loud, particularly for the people at home who have not seen the show, it was absolutely outstanding in every respect, and particularly your performance. I saw it 3 weeks ago, and I still have not recovered from it.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing it many more times
Yes.
before it closes. So congratulations, first of all, to our Forever Signature Theater for bringing a profound, respectful production of this beautiful work. To say the least, the outstanding cast and direction, everything on there. I can't say enough, and I've seen every show Signature has done, but they just keep getting better and better and better. I do have a personal question.
Yeah.
Hanging around theater for many, many, many years now and living off of it, I'm intrigued by actors who are not working full time. I mean, you have it's almost like I'm Still Here from Stephen Sondheim stars.
Yeah.
How do you adjust to a period now? I don't know your schedule. There must be times in which you have absolutely nothing going on.
Yeah.
And how do you handle that mentally and to keep your drive going?
Yeah.
Because the theater is a hard way to make a living.
Yes.
So our friend here gave some high praises to the production and then asked you to talk.
Phenomenal praise. It's not that.
Yeah, phenomenal praises. And
12 stars.
and then asked you to talk about the life of an actor. How do you continue through the dips and the highs and the lows and whatnot? Yeah.
Yeah. Number one, I think one of the things that I remind myself in those moments, because you're right, it's not consistent. There's moments where you don't know what you're going to do next, and you're auditioning and you're getting no's and no's and no's, and you're trying to figure it out. One of the things I remind myself is that I'm doing what I love. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds a little cliche, but being able to have the moments where I'm here at Signature, playing Usnavi, getting to do this art, it reminds me to keep going. Mm-hmm. Number two, having community, like having artist community and just community in general. So when you have these moments of you don't know what's happening, you can rely on your community to like come together, create art on your own. Also, taking classes, if you have the means, obviously. There's lots of scholarships too in New York. But I try to, keep up with my artistry. So if I don't have work, if it's not lined up, then I'm probably going to try to take some dance classes, some acting classes, so that I can feel like I'm fulfilling that art portion of my life while probably also having a side job, right? A lot of my side jobs have been in the corporate world, being like front desk secretary. And in those moments, I'm still reading plays while I'm at the front desk, learning music for an audition. And it just reminds me that, like, especially when I do the side jobs, and I know everyone is different. For me, I don't think I could do anything else. Like when I'm working in the corporate world or doing the different things, I'm so not happy. I'm so like bored. I want to be doing something. So just reminding myself that I love what I do, having community, having community to rely on. I think all of that helps to keep going. And this business is not about like how talented you are, none of that really matters. But if you're consistent and you stay the course and you keep working, things will happen. Like this didn't come by coincidence. Like I was ready for this moment because of the preparation that I put in before here. Yeah.
That's great. A question from online, please.
So this is from Brenda. She asked, most of the dance sequences in the production are so rigorous. What was the choreography process like for you and the cast?
Talk to us about choreography. This is a dance show.
Yes. So I'm probably like the last person to ask about choreography,
sure.
But I'll tell you that some of these dancers are some of the best dancers I've seen. I think they did a good job of collaborating, Shani and James, on telling story through movement. I think a lot of times you can just throw movement to music and it just be a generalized thing. But I think they did a good job of like figuring out what we were saying in each scene or each number and trying to make the movement support the story. I think the dancers, they probably worked the hardest in the production. I think I admire them so much because the way in which they rehearse, a lot of these dancers, specifically here, on our 10-minute breaks, I was taking a sip of water, eating my bar, and they were fully dancing. They were fully, the culture is a little different, and I admire it a lot. I think that they've done a beautiful job, and they work really hard, and I pray for their bodies, because, yeah.
I love it. Yes, please.
Along that same vein, I'm curious to know if you Usnavi, because Usnavi's not supposed to be that great of a dancer,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And also without falling into the stereotype of like all Puerto Ricans are great dancers.
Yeah.
Because I'm Puerto Rican. I'm
Hey,
a great dancer.
yeah.
And I also want to thank Signature for casting you as Usnavi, because I don't know if you got growing up in the way that I did of you don't look Puerto Rican.
Totally.
Right? Because Puerto Ricans come in every shade,
Yeah.
right, and every size. And so I love this ginger Usnavi,
Yeah.
knowing that you're Puerto Rican and knowing that you're representing our community as it is.
Yeah.
Because really, any person of any shade, any hair color could be Usnavi.
Yeah.
Because that's just how diverse our community is.
Yeah.
So back to my question about dancing.
Are you a
Yes.
better dancer than Usnavi is?
Yes.
And then you can talk about the other stuff you brought up as well if you want to.
Also, one of my favorite, I just reposted this just about Latinos in general, and it shows like just us in so many different shades. Because you're right, growing up, I did, and even now, I get, Irish or Scottish and maybe that is somewhere in the gene pool. What I do know is that my family originated from Puerto Rico, and like that, I am Puerto Rican, and I'm so proud to be Puerto Rican. In terms of the dancing, this was a really interesting part for me because I have seen different versions of an Usnavi played where it's like he completely leans into not knowing anything of dance, and it is completely one way. I had this feeling as I was like thinking about him that, yeah, I have so many cousins, so many friends, Dominican, Puerto Rican, that can't dance, that's fine. We don't all have it, but there is a little bit of a something that he has that is his, right? And so I try to like figure that out, like he's Dominican, so I would think that maybe he's not the best merengue dancer, but maybe he can do bachata, because bachata is like 1, 2, step, 1, 2, step, right? So I thought specifically about maybe he does have like this in his back pocket, like this is his thing, but when Vanessa comes, he to la feet, like he loses it all. So I think I just dug into not just playing some general he can't dance, and 2, being more specific about maybe this is his like go-to move, but still when she comes, it's like, and then when you watch all these dancers, they're like turning and flipping and jumping and he's not doing any of that.
Yeah.
Like, he could, yeah, thank you. But yeah, I thought about that a lot, yeah, because Ángel myself, I can dance, yeah. So it was very interesting, yeah. Cool, thank you.
That's great. In the back, please. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
My husband and I saw your show. You're right, phenomenal. Is there a role in musical theater, like going way back into musical theater, that if you didn't have to audition for it 12 times, that you'd say, I want that?
What are the dream roles?
Dream roles. Well, this was definitely one of them. This
Yeah.
was definitely one of them. I think one that is completely shifting gears would be George in Sunday in the Park.
Awesome. Cool.
That would be a dream role of mine. I definitely want to play Hamilton at some point. Now that I've done this one, I feel like I want to touch that one. I will say, maybe controversial take, I do think that In the Heights is a better show than Hamilton, but that is just my opinion. They're different. But I would say Hamilton, I would say George. I'm trying to think of another role. I've played Che in Evita, which I loved. I've played Bernardo in West Side Story, which was also amazing. I've played a lot of like roles that I've always wanted to play. I think the next thing for me would be something that I don't know yet, like a story that I don't know yet, that like I connect to. I don't know what that is yet. Maybe I haven't found it yet, or it hasn't been written yet. But I think along the lines of something new that's saying something about now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So many questions. David.
I'm picking up on that, and you sing beautifully. And I'm thinking of all the golden age musicals where the leading man really has to get up there and put it out there.
Yeah.
Like Billy Bigelow in Carousel.
Yeah.
Or Sky Masterson in Guides and Dolls. But I want to hone in on something that I really admire about your career. As I've looked through your bio, it is avoiding the stereotype. Because it would be very easy for other people to look at you and say, only Latina roles. And you, as I see, looking at the bio listing, you have deliberately gone after a wide range, and you haven't put yourself only in that box. You're happy to be there when it comes up, but you don't see yourself apparently as being the one to do only that.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? How do you avoid the stereotype?
Yeah.
And how do you yourself say, I'm going to aim myself in different directions within musical theater?
Yeah.
My outside voice.
Thank
That's
you.
a great
Yes.
question.
Yeah, talk about avoiding being pigeonholed and being seen for the artistry and not just for the race and whatnot.
Yeah. First, thanks for that question. That's such a great question, and I'm very observant of you. I think, simply put, I said no. There came a point in my career where I realized that my past agents, I felt like I was only getting the auditions for Che or for Bernardo or for anything that was, Usnavi, anything that was Latin. And then some of the other things that I really wanted to be a part of, I saw that my friends were getting auditions for, and I wasn't. And I was just getting the same. And so I just had a conversation with my agents at the time and let them know, like you said, I'm happy to do it when it comes, but I don't only want to be this, because I've also seen people, and you learn by watching the people that came before you, and you see that like some people have, which they may be happy about or not, they have In the Heights or West Side Story or Evita on their resume 12 times each show, and I realized early on, I was like, I don't want to do that. I feel like we should be able to tell, unless it's about a specific community, we can tell any story, And so I shifted that by saying no. And so I started to turn down, even if it was the only audition I had, I would turn it down. And yeah, that made me nervous about like, would I be dropped by my agents or would I not like get work because I'm saying no to auditions? But what it really did was open me up for other things. And I started to book other things. So now I don't feel as pigeonholed, there's still some of that. There's still some of that naturally, and I think that subconsciously casting still does that. I think we have room to grow, but I've gone against that, and my agents now, they know that I love to do this, but I don't want to only be Usnavi. I think I can do other things, and I want to do other things. So, yeah.
Well, I want to respond.
Please.
I want a commitment from you to do George and Sunday in the Park.
Yes.
And you've already got the beer.
Yeah, yes. Thank you.
We are all awaiting your George.
Yes.
Yes. Bobby and Company? Sure. Love it. We're going to go here and then to the online question. Yes.
This is more of a compliment than a question. I saw it one time, based on everybody's performance, but mostly yours. You asked about this Square Theater, so I asked 4 friends to come later to see it again, and they said, well, get good seats. There are no bad seats in there. So this will be their first time at Signature, first time the people I worked with 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so based on seeing it once, I'm bringing 4 more people. So
Thank you for bringing people.
Yeah,
Thank you.
people are loving this show. Thank you for bringing them to us. James, online
I
question.
have quite a few questions.
Okay.
Someone mentioned, which I thought was funny, since going off of your George comment, since Mandy Patinkin will be honored by the Signature Theater in April, you have to meet him.
Yes.
So let's talk about the gala. You're performing at the gala this year with Mr. Mandy Patinkin.
I
there.
am.
Yeah.
Yes. I am so excited to do that. Mandy is probably one of my biggest musical theater inspirations. I think that.
Also a Che, yeah.
Yeah. Also Che,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just his work in general, his body of work, him as an actor. I just think. Mwah. So to get to honor him, I'm gonna be singing. I don't know something from Evita, I'm sure. To honor him, I'm just like, I'm nervous, but also excited to meet the man. It's like you get these opportunities. They don't come a lot, but like to meet one of your musical theater idols is pretty cool. So I'm very excited to meet him. I don't feel nervous to perform for him because I see it more as like I'm honoring him. Mm-hmm. It's not about me or like my voice or anything. It's about honoring him. So yeah, I'm super excited to meet the man. and introduce myself. Yeah.
Love it. Let's just keep going with these online questions.
So, this question, what has Signature provided, whether it be production, artist support, workspace, that sets them apart from other theaters that you've performed at?
Okay, so what's made Signature different for you?
Signature is really attentive, like to their actors and to our well-being, if we're comfortable, whatever we need. They are like, I feel like more so than a lot of other theaters I've worked at, just on it. Like if you need something so small as like, hey, it's like pretty dry out here, you know, I'm rapping a lot. Do you have like a humidifier? Boom. In 2 seconds, I have a humidifier.
Awesome.
Also, the culture here, just in terms of, it's not like a toxic positivity, but there is this positive, uplifting workplace culture here that I really love, and it allows you, one, like if you're not having the best day, if you're feeling ill, if you're feeling this, you don't have this pressure of like, oh, I have to do this, because there are, you know, covers and swings, and also you don't feel bad from the people above. You don't feel like this pressure. You feel like, okay, I have the ability to take the rest that I need. I'm provided with the things that I need, and I feel supported. So ultimately, I would say the workplace culture is amazing, and the support that's provided here is really good.
We love to hear that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Here, and then we'll get one more online question. Yes, please.
When you have a voice, isn't there a transition to a singing career, putting out albums, that sort of track?
Are albums in your future,
You know,
or have they been in your past?
my dad would say it's about time. Like, I would love to. I would love to. Yes, I think that I've gotten in my own way in terms of like, I don't know if I want to do a transition into that, but I would love to make it an and that, and also this. I used to write some songs when I was a bit younger on guitar, and then I got a little self-conscious as I got older. It's like when you get older, you start like over-analyzing whatever you're creating, and I started like kind of judging my own lyrics and not necessarily thinking they were that good. But as I've like stepped into more roles and been able to perform for more people, I'm starting to feel more confident and hopeful that I can start picking up my guitar again and start writing, especially because I've had a lot more life than when I was 16 years old. So yeah, I do see that as a possibility, and I would love to. I would love to say stuff through my music. Yeah.
Amazing. Please.
Several questions. Let's hear about Bad Cinderella.
Okay, let's talk Bad Cinderella. Let's
Yes.
So first Broadway show, right?
Yeah, Broadway debut.
Let's start with finding out that you made it into this show. What was that like?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay,
Yeah.
wait, I'm gonna go back a little bit before to
Okay,
like
please,
audition.
Please,
audition.
please, please.
So my past agent at the time, I remember that this show was coming. They said that this show was coming from London, coming to Broadway. And I had worked with the choreographer and I believe the associate music director on another project before. So I felt like, okay, this business is about who you know. How do you get into the room to audition? You still have to audition and, you know, meet the mark. So I told my agents, hey, this is coming. I would love an audition. Didn't really hear much. Messaged them again, and then they eventually, I forget how they worded it, but the answer was they couldn't get me an audition because I think it was the hot ticket at the time. They were only giving this many auditions to certain agencies, and maybe my agency at the time got it, but I wasn't one that they gave an audition to. That's how it works sometimes. You don't know the rhyme or reason. So I took matters into my own hands, and I was bold, and I just emailed I found the email of the choreographer, Joanne Hunter. I love her. And I said, hey, I would love to audition for the show. I think I'm perfect for this track, and I would love to understudy the prince. Bam. I just sent it. And she responded, and she said, yes, you are perfect. I will get you an audition. I got an audition.
Love it.
And then I started auditioning, and yes, I'm a good dancer, but once again, I'm not, what they're doing out here 8 times a week, that's not what I do. A lot of Bad Cinderella was quick, and it was athletic. And this is why they say, like, who you know matters, but also more so who knows you who knows your body of work, who knows your work ethic, all of that. So I went into the first dance call and I was overwhelmed because it was amazing dancers. It was so fast. It was so intense. And I did not feel great at all. But she looked at me and she said, take a breath. I know what you can do. And then I did it again. I felt way better. And I got a call back. And I knew in my gut and in my heart that I got the call back because of her. But I knew that if I got the chance to do the acting sides and sing the Prince song, I knew that I would be stronger in that. And so I got that opportunity in the callback, and I really impressed them. But then I had to dance again. And I was like, oh my gosh. But this time it was partner dance.
Okay.
And yeah, it's not like salsa, merengue, but it was, I believe it's a waltz. And I'm more familiar with partner dance because of how I grew up.
Yeah.
So we did the dance call, and I was like, yes. And then I had another final callback, and then I remember I was playing tennis under the George Washington Bridge. Yes, I was playing tennis.
Love it.
And, at the time, I was very happy to get the call, but at the same time, remember, my agents couldn't get me an audition. So getting the call, it was almost like, thank you so much for relaying the information. And wow, I did this all by myself and for myself, and with the connections, I made my Broadway debut, and I made that happen. And yeah, I think that was so special. It was a cool way to get it, and also it's an example of you have to fight for what you want. There's so many people out here. So many people want the same thing. It's like an oversaturated market, and there's so many talented humans, but if you're a good person, if you do good work, people remember that. And she remembered that and gave me a chance. And I met the marks as I continued with my callbacks. And yeah, that's how I made my Broadway debut.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how was the show? What was it like doing this show?
The show, so the show was riddled in controversy because of how it came over and how all that happened. But to be honest, we were such a tight-knit family. We were having such a fun time every single night. It was, I don't think I'll ever forget my first bow on Broadway, because maybe 7 or 8 years before that, I didn't even really know what musical theater was.
That's crazy.
And then to make my Broadway debut, and my parents still trying to figure out what it is that I do, and having, my mom there on opening night, it just was, there's this video on my Instagram. It was a really emotional moment where you did the thing that you set out to do. And the moment is almost bigger than you can really process, but I don't know, it's just I'm so proud that I did that.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Yeah.
How is the Broadway world different than the regional theater world for you as an actor? What are the differences?
Yeah. It's not that much different.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about the art that you create. I think this could be on Broadway. This could be on Broadway. There's so many pieces that I've done regionally that could be on Broadway. I think the main difference is that there's a lot more money, right?
Yeah.
In terms of how it gets produced. There's, this system where if you're on Broadway, that means that this and this and this about you, but also it doesn't. There's so many talented actors that have not been on Broadway yet and may not even want to do Broadway. I think Broadway is an amazing goal and mark, and of course I'd love to be on Broadway again, but I don't think it to be the end-all, be-all. And I think I struggle sometimes with the commercial aspect, because I love creating art. And sometimes when you're on Broadway, I didn't have that experience much with Bad Cinderella. I feel that sometimes the art can get sacrificed for what's going to make more money.
Sure.
And then as artists, you're not as fulfilled.
Totally.
But ultimately, I think more money. I think the best part is the community of other actors.
Yeah.
You're all of a sudden in this pool with other actors that have the same show schedule as you. When you get out on Sunday night, most people go to the same place, and you commune and you build a community. I do think that just a part of me, I'm a challenger as a human being. I think that us as a community, as a Broadway community, we can do a better job of, just because someone is on Broadway and then maybe they're not on Broadway again, sometimes it feels like you fall out of that community. And I think as a Broadway community, we can do a better job of not being so insular or exclusive. If someone's on Broadway or not on Broadway, if they're a theater artist, we're all part of the community,
Yeah.
all of us. So I think in many ways that needs to be worked on. Like
Yeah.
this like insular, if you're on Broadway, then you're this unit together and then other people are not. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Art is art.
Art is art.
Yeah, I love it. James, were there other online questions? Nope, that was it? Okay.
Well, there was one.
Oh, please, go for it.
Is where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, where are you?
Like career? I would love to have another, if not a couple, Broadway shows under my belt.
Sure.
This time, as roles. I'm really trying to transition into playing more roles. That's another thing. Like you can play roles regionally, and then you get to Broadway, and it's almost like sometimes there's like this hierarchy, and you're knocked down. So you're like, I would be seen for understudies or like standbys, which I would love to do, but just like the Latin pigeonhole, I'm also fighting that cap of like you're an understudy right now because of your age or your experience. I'm trying to move into standby or the role, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I would like to be, playing roles on Broadway or regionally, national tour. Also, TV film.
Okay.
I haven't done a lot of it. I did one like co-star on CBS, and then I did Jesus Christ Superstar Live, which was a different version of TV. But during the pandemic, I really got into acting through the camera, and I love that medium so much. It kind of has changed my perspective on theater in terms of how I approach theater. It's helped.
Okay.
It's helped a lot. So yeah, TV, film, and roles on Broadway. 5 years. Yeah.
Good. Barbara, please.
Have you auditioned for Law and Order yet?
Have you done Law and Order yet? Have you joined the club?
Actually, I have auditioned for Law and Order right before the pandemic too, and then the pandemic hit. But yes, I've auditioned for Law and Order. I'll be on it soon. I'll send you a message on Facebook.
Please. Yes. Right here and then here. Yes.
You said something about your ethnic background, and you said maybe Scottish, so maybe Jamie and Outlander means like a half brother.
I love that. Yes. Oh.
Please.
I don't know if you've had time to see Amelia Perez.
I have.
I found it very interesting. First, that there are a lot of roles for Latinos, of they were from all different countries, and they incorporated singing and dancing in the film.
Yeah.
And it was a really odd mixture.
It was strange. Yes. Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was.
Tell our friends at home what movie we're talking about.
Oh, Emilia Perez.
Thank you.
I'm also a fan of Zoe Saldana's work, like her body of work. I'm a fan of, and I'm very happy that she's getting her praise in this moment. I also think it's very beautiful representation for a lot of Latin people to be able to get there. I do think it was interesting. I really loved the concept. I also understand that even as we move towards, yes, that's a lot of Latin roles on a movie, there's still room to grow. Like for example, a lot of the controversy is that the main actors weren't Mexican, right? And they kind of said it in Mexico, which is something that I think as we grow and as we get more specific, we'll be able to honor the specificities of cultures and the different places that we come from, and not it be a general, we're all kind of the same thing, if that makes sense. But I do love what it has done for her career and what that inherently is going to do for a lot of Latin people moving forward. Yeah.
While we're on the topic of issues of representation,
Yeah.
I was reading an interview from about 10 years ago that Lin-Manuel did about In the Heights, came across this quote in this interview. You said, I didn't think about it very consciously in terms of the creating of the show, but it was in my mind. I was very conscious of the way Latinos have been portrayed before on stage. I was Bernardo in 6th grade. I directed West Side Story my senior year in high school. I saw Paul Simon's The Cape Man my senior year in high school as well, and that show just about broke my heart. Not so much for the show, but for the fact that it was 40 years after West Side Story, and we still had knives in our hands, and we were still all gang members. I didn't feel the need to represent that at all. That wasn't the story that I was interested in telling. What does In the Heights offer in terms of representation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sums it up pretty well. I feel like even early on in my career, when I was mostly TV film, it was like gangster number 2, robber number 3, or and I was like, I mean, oh, what? Is that the only thing? And also, I also played Bernardo in West Side Story, and I think the piece as a musical theater piece is beautiful.
Yeah.
But there are so many. It's clear that we weren't behind the table. Yeah. It's clear that we didn't help create it, because if you are, for example, Puerto Rican, and the music is beautiful, but it's not like our music. No. It's not our cultural. It would have been bomba. It would have been plena. There's like a lot of things that it would have been, and I think the beautiful thing about In the Heights is it is about our joy. Yeah. It is about us as a community. And I think a lot of times you get tired of playing the robber or the villain, or killing somebody or stealing something. I think that this show does a beautiful job of showing our humanity, and I think that we're ready as actors to be Latin people and get to play all range of emotions and characters, because there's so much more to us. Yeah. And what I love about the show is when you step back, if you were to write out like a plot synopsis, it's actually kind of mundane, right? Like it's day-to-day stuff. It's not the robberies. It's opening and closing a store, and should I go back to college? It's pretty. It's beautiful in its simplicity. The simplicity. Yeah. I agree. What in The Heights feels authentic to you? What are the things in the script and this production that make you go, I know that? I think the characters, like Abuela. We all have that Abuela, whether she's your biological blood Abuela or not. Especially if you grew up like in the New York area, like you have the Abuela that's like out the window, like knows everybody's business, and she takes care of you. I also think characters like Daniela is like the tias that we have that are like, they know all the gossip that goes around in town, and like they're not saying anything, but they're telling everyone. They're like, no, I don't like to share gossip, but look, this is what's happening. I all of that is just so familiar. It's just so part of the culture. I think the characters is the loudest thing. I do want to, maybe this is a challenge, but there's a line in Carnaval, and I think she says, when I grew up in the hills of Vega Alta. Okay. This is a question for like the broad public out there too. Are there hills in Vega Alta? Because I think I've been there and there aren't hills, but correct me if I'm wrong.
We needed a one-syllable word.
That's just me being a nerd.
David, please.
I'm going to pick up on something that this lady can talk about over here, because she grew up right there in the community or right nearby. Yeah. She says it has changed when she's gone back to take a look at it. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you got a call back when you were playing tennis under the George Washington Bridge. Yeah. So have you visited that area that you are playing on stage now?
Well.
And is it now different from the community that's being presented on stage? And actually, this lady should be talking about it, and not me.
I was telling David that I grew up in Washington Heights. I grew up about 3-4 blocks away from the Miranda family in Inwood, and know Washington Heights very well. And In the Heights came out quite a while back, talking about gentrification. And my mom passed away in 2020, and we had not had lots of opportunities to go back to the neighborhood until recently. and we were driving through, and the skyscrapers have shot up in Inwood, in Washington Heights. When we first got Starbucks, right, it was, all the young people excited and all the, let's say, pendeja.
Yes, yes.
Spend $5
Yeah.
$5 and $6 on a cup of coffee when you can get it, But that's progress, right? That's capitalism. The neighborhood's changed quite a bit. I think that having Lin-Manuel's vision of In the Heights immortalized for the stage is really lovely for those of us who grew up there, because it is changing as quickly as it is.
Yeah, so the show's set in what, 2008?
Yeah.
Is it a period piece?
Now it is.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the necessary intention, but it definitely is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your relationship with Washington Heights?
I actually live on 181st between Fort Washington and Broadway.
Yeah.
So I live there. I live right where we're talking about. And I didn't grow up there, but what I can tell you now is that it's fully gentrified. It's gentrified. It's very expensive to live there. And yeah, what they're warning about here has completely happened, and I think more so than anyone ever imagined. But there are pockets of our community that are still in there, holding strong, like this bodega is holding strong. But yeah, it's very real. It's a very real thing. The gentrification has made the rent super expensive. The Starbucks is there. That's surviving. They just renovated it. But the little bodegas and little stuff, it definitely struggling to survive.
We are just about out of time. Before I ask a final question, I just want to give a shout out, a thank you to the sponsor of this program, the Mather, a forward-thinking luxury life plan community for those 62 and better, now open in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Before I ask the final question again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So you were up on that stage or on stage on Broadway, any regional theater. How does that feed you? What does acting give you that you can't find elsewhere?
It's a great question. I think as artists, there's a deep knowing that you're supposed to be doing what you're doing, if that makes sense. And since the moment I found it, when I was 15, 16, and I got what they call the bug, there was this silent knowing that I've had that I'm supposed to be doing this. And it is just kind of, it keeps going. It keeps going. So when I get to do this and when I get to meet people after and they're moved, I'm awkward at receiving compliments, one, but two, just about the work that we're doing. I love this work. I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't see anything else that I could do. And I don't know, it's just this silent and confident, keep going, keep going. You love what you're doing, and you get to share it with humans. You get to connect with humans through your art, and hopefully you get to inspire, change people's minds, and inspire a new generation of artists, because I know I was inspired by actors who were on a stage standing in their fullness, and just to kind of keep the legacy going. It just fills me, to all of those things fill me completely.
Thank you for sharing what you have with all of us. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see
Thank
you again soon.
Thank you.